Once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. My next guest is a former newspaper reporter, not to mention a convert to Catholicism, now a Jesuit scholastic. What is this Jesuit Pope trying to tell us about spreading the gospel in this Jubilee year of mercy? Here to discuss his new book, What Would Pope Francis Do? Bringing the good news to people in need, and to give us a little insight into the mind of this very canny and unexpected Pope. Would you welcome Sean Salai? Sean, great to see you.
Great to be
Pleasure.
here, Raymond. Thanks for having me.
You were teaching in a Jesuit high school, right, down in Florida,
Yep.
when Pope Francis was elected. Did you ever imagine we'd have a Jesuit Pope?
Oh, no idea. When the Pope was elected, I was teaching freshman boys. I told them the week before the election there will never be a Jesuit Pope. Some of the kids said, "What if a Jesuit's Pope?" I said, "There's only one cardinal. Jesuits try to avoid honors in the church. There's never been one before." Yeah. And then a week later, he walked out.
There he
was. We were
just
shocked and floored, and it was wonderful to be embarrassed like that.
Tell me, why do you think he remains an enigma and such a... People can't quite get a read on Pope Francis. They don't quite know where he's headed here. Why do you think that is? What is it about him as a Jesuit that perhaps we're missing?
Well, as a Jesuit, he speaks a language of the heart, a language of discernment, and it's not something that you can analyze and fit into intellectual categories too easily, because he prays before he does things. And he's also somebody who pays more attention to his sense of where God is leading the church than to what the media is concerned about.
And as you state in the book, it can sometimes, the Jesuits are sort of accustomed to going to places they didn't originally imagine.
Absolutely. St. Ignatius didn't expect to be the Jesuit general. Pope Francis, his resignation letter as a cardinal was on Pope Benedict's desk when he was elected. And it's just something that really is part of Jesuit life, is learning to accept that God may be calling you to something beyond yourself. And in this book, really, it's about Francis calling all of us to be a field hospital church in this year of mercy, to go out to people on the margins, whether they're elderly, whether they're homeless, whether they're in prisons. I work at San Quentin prison and talk about that in the book. Talk about Pope Francis visiting Rabibia prison.
Right.
And I'm really moved by Mother Angelica, who we're still mourning. Yeah. And I don't have to tell you just the influence she had on so many people, including yourself. Yeah. And at the same time went through tremendous suffering in her life.
She did.
In her younger life, and then just think of the last several years when she was receiving nursing care and a very hidden life. And Pope Francis talks about how our society kind of throws the elderly away. I think one quote in the book, he says, "I've seen myself that the elderly are treated like trash in our society." Yeah. And so it's a call to all of us, maybe not to be missionaries in the same way, but to reach out to people in our own communities, our own families. Mother Teresa said the poor are among us, even in the United States.
But before we run out of time, I want you to touch on something. One of the keys to this book, you use the joy of the gospel, which is Pope Francis's first encyclical, his independent encyclical. Yeah. Or was it an exhortation?
Exhortation.
Exhortation. The joy of the gospel you use to understand his thought. What are the big themes you see there that perhaps the rest of the world and the average viewer are missing?
Well, we follow 6 themes: joy, longing, hope, dignity. I would just focus maybe on longing for a moment. The idea is that the starting point of our relationship with God is not our love for God, but God's love for us. And that once we experience that, we look at how we're being called and moved to respond to it.
And what else? What are those other themes that you point out in the book? You mentioned dignity, closeness to others, weariness. Going out to the margins is never easy. Where did that come from for Francis?
Well, that came...
That understanding.
Sure. And it came from being a very busy pastor. You know, for me, I talk about my experience of teaching high school in the book and how wearying it is to get up at 7 in the morning every day and go all day and then go to events in the evening. And it's kind of like being a parent.
Or being a teacher. Teaching is, I've learned these past few weeks, there is probably nothing more exhausting because children and young people draw so much, they demand so much energy from you and creativity. It's draining. I mean, for old guys, it's really draining. So I've been speaking to hundreds of kids at schools, and it's, wow, it's refreshing, but it's also, it takes a lot of energy. What is in the final analysis, what is it about Francis the Jesuit that helps to explain and encompass even the contradictions that we may be reporting from week to week? Like the exhortation a few weeks ago that, as you know, generated a lot of controversy, wanting to help those in difficult situations, even marriage situations, and also seemingly changing practice while leaving the doctrine in place. What explains that approach?
Really his life experience. It's his experience of being in prisons, hospitals, drug addiction rehab facilities, high schools. He was Mr. Bergoglio,
that's right,
teaching high school chemistry during his Jesuit training, just as I taught high school.
Wow.
And really it's all about sort of appreciating where people are and walking with them in their journey. It's not enough to just leave someone with the catechism, although the catechism is very important, and then leave them in the nursing home. But you really, people can look the catechism up online. What they want from the church a lot of times is that accompaniment and that kind of close contact.
Yeah, that witness and that friendship.
Yeah.
Sean, thank you so much for being here. What would Pope Francis do? Bringing the Good News to People in Need by Sean Salai is available at bookstores everywhere and online. That is all the time we have. I want to remind you, the final chapter of Mother Angelica's incredible story hits bookstores on May 17th. If you can pre-order it, you might get some great deals out there. Mother Angelica, Her Grand Silence, The Last Years, and Living Legacy is available now from the EWTN Religious Catalog, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever great books are sold. Don't miss this moving final installment of the Mother Angelica collection.